Alright, I'm going to give just a couple seconds to log in here. For those who have not used the GoToWebinar platform before, we will go over briefly how to use the toolbar that you're seeing on your screen. And a recording of today's session will be available to all ASPA members in your ASPA membership online digital content portal. Let's look like we've got a fair amount of people in here. So as people trickle in, we'd like to welcome everyone to our webinar today, our student webinar. Ms. Linda will be moderating, and she will introduce Michaela. But real quickly, for those that have not used GoToWebinar platform before, you will have a toolbar on your screen that allows you to control several aspects of your experience today. While all attendees will remain muted with their cameras off for the duration of the presentation, you may submit questions for the speaker using the Questions tab located on your dashboard. Those will be read to the speaker for her responses at the conclusion of the presentation in a moderated question and answer session. If you have any technical difficulties, you can use the chat feature located on your screen to send those to me, Keelan Keegan, and I will facilitate helping you on the back end. A recording of today's session will be available to all ASPA members in your online digital content profile. It usually takes about 2 weeks to render in our system. Go ahead and turn it over to Linda to introduce our presenter. Thank you so much.
Hello and welcome everybody. I am Linda Nathan, your 2025 student representative, and our guest speaker today is Michaela E. Abbott, an assistant professor in the School of Public Affairs at the University of Arkansas at Little Rock and a doctoral fellow at the Municipal Research Law at North Carolina State University. She currently serves as our chair of ASPA section of Women in Public Administration, and also sits on the board for section on public administration education. Michaela work centers on collaborative problem solving, building public trust, and advancing social equity, particularly in the criminal justice and public education system. She is a 2020 ASPA Founders Fellow, a proud member of Phi Alpha Alpha Honor Society, and brings experience in regional planning, local government, higher education, and nonprofit management. Above all, Michaela is deeply passionate about inspiring the next generation of public sector's leaders and turning research into real-world solutions and make our community stronger. Let's give her a warm welcome. Thank you, Michaela, for saying yes to this webinar, and you have the floor.
Yay! Thank you so much, Linda. I really appreciate that. Today, so when I was asked to present for y'all, I really thought about what I needed to hear when I was in your position, especially now as someone on the other side with a job in academia. And so I want to present to you today about how to build your career by following your joy. And so Linda did a wonderful job introducing me, but I do want to give you a little bit of context, some more background, just because you'll be listening to me present for about a half an hour today, and so you might want to know, who the heck is this lady? So my name is Michaela Abbott. I went to undergrad at Ithaca College for documentary film. I graduated, so documentary film, how does that happen? So I graduated and realized I never wanted to make a movie again, but I loved the idea of contributing to the public good, as a documentary or documentarians usually do. That then led me to the College of Charleston to get my MPA. It was a simple Google search. You know, my parents had lived in South Carolina at the time, and so applying for the MPA, it directly then segued to the pursuit of my PhD. I always joke that when I was an undergrad, I said I wanted to be in college forever, and I technically have continued that by going from school to school, and then also now being on a college campus as a professor. So beyond academia, I've worked in various areas of the public sector, such as regional planning, local government, higher education, and nonprofit management. I've definitely worked in higher ed for most of my career, where I've switched between roles in the president's office at the College of Charleston, helping the board of trustees, also the provost's office, helping with college events, and now at my university. I also work with the North Carolina Workforce Development Leadership Initiative, now called the Workforce Development Academy. And through through here, we developed and implemented a professional training program for leaders in workforce and economic development. But aside from all the job stuff, I grew up in Massachusetts. If you ever are visiting, go to Duxbury, Massachusetts. There's the longest wooden bridge in the country, I think, there. Um, since I've lived in Ithaca, New York, Charleston, South Carolina, and Raleigh, North Carolina. Now I call Little Rock, Arkansas home, where I live with my partner, Vinny, on the screen, our dog, Biscuit, and our cat, Mickey. Outside of teaching, I enjoy exploring the outdoors through walks and camping trips while Mickey holds down the fort at home. As you can see, he does not come camping with us. And in general, I'm a pretty crafty person who loves collecting hobbies. Sewing, knitting, woodworking, jewelry making, you name it, I've probably tried it. I also take adult dance classes and am a devoted fan of RuPaul's Drag Race, having watched nearly every season, including most international franchises and spin-offs. I swear, I've seen it all. And you're probably wondering, why? Why is she even bringing this up? Why is she telling me this? But I do this to show you that I live the lessons I'll talk about today in my real life. I never like to define myself to a box. I will do anything that piques my interest, and I'm always saying yes to fun things in my life. So, just to give you some context about this webinar specifically, we're going to be talking about my professional journey through ASPA. I'm taking a three-pronged approach since the timelines overlap a bit. There's no real linear way to describe this, so I chunked it into 3 organizations or programs that have helped me the most. We'll be talking about SWAPA, the section for Women in Public Administration, the Founders Fellow Program, and also SPAE, the section on Public Affairs Education. And so my whole through line through this is going to be talking about my experiences in hopes to open the curtain, show behind the curtain a little bit for all the students who are just seeing me on the other end or seeing their other mentors or professionals on the other side hired at these conferences. I remember going and seeing these people that I looked up to. I met Rosemary O'Leary after reading her textbook in my class, Mary Guy, the same way. And you look at these people and you wonder how they got there. And so I'm by no means comparing myself to Mary Guy or Rosemary O'Leary, but I hope just by showing you behind the curtain of my life and my experience, it can speak to yours and maybe inspire you a bit. So we're going to start with my experience with SWAPA. For those who don't know, this is the section for Women in Public Administration. And this was the first organization I got involved with through ASPA. And so I'll give you, for each of these, I'll give you the timeline of how I went through it, and then also we'll highlight some key points as well. So first, I remember, so I graduated undergrad in 2017, and I went straight to my master's. And while I'm there, I remember I had moved back in with my parents. I was sitting on my bed in the guest room, really just wanting to be involved. I was on the cusp of this journey, and I really was excited by it. And so even before I had started school, technically, I sent an email. I think the president at the time was Agatha Caraballo, and I sent an email and was added to a listserv and redirected to the committees. It really was a basic procedure. I wasn't necessarily added to the board yet. I was just put down as a volunteer. Then 2019 comes, it's January 2019, and I want to note, I did my best to go back and fact check all this, but give or take a little bit. So it was about 2019, and I saw that they posted a call for board members. So I decided to run for the board because like I said, just wanted to be involved. And I had called one of my professors, Dr. Kate Keeney, and I said, I kind of want to do this, but I have to pay dues to be part of ASPA. said, it's $75. Oh my goodness. I think it was $75 at the time. I'm a grad student. How am I going to pay for this? And I really thought at that point, I was just kind of denying paying for anything. I didn't want to. So I had to have my professor, Kate Keeney at the time, a long-term mentor of mine, basically say, girl, just do it. Just do it. It's a small price to pay for the network you're going to get. And I can't thank her enough for that because it really, truly is. And they have student discounts that I don't think I was aware of until I started applying, and it ended up being cheaper than I originally thought. And so I was officially a dues-paying member of ASPA, and then I also signed up for SWAPA, so I was a dues-paying member of SWAPA as well, and I ran for the board. And it was a virtual meeting, a virtual election, and I remember signing on, and the person I was running against was my professor, Dr. Marin Truckman. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, I'm never going to win this. I'm going against my professor. And it really felt like this big jump between me and this person who I was with once a week for a couple hours, someone I really worked with. Turns out it wasn't even really a competition. There were 2 board slots that needed to be filled and 2 of us that were running. So we both got in, basically walked on. At that point, we were voted in, but if you think about it, who else were they going to vote for? And so that was an instance where I really thought, wow, I should believe in myself a little bit more. Then we'll breeze over COVID a little bit because the next milestone I have is in 2022. It was the second in-person conference for ASPA that I was going to. This time, though, it was my first one being on the board of SWAPA. So we were in Jacksonville. It was so hot, so fun, and I remember it was the breakfast and the SWAPA breakfast, which I will give a plug for those of you who are maybe thinking about going to ASPA. Please sign up for the breakfast. The SWAPA breakfast is so much fun, and it's a really great way to get involved. And then, my experience, it really gave me a chance to be seen. I can't tell you the amount of times I volunteered for something, and just with my enthusiasm, a lot of people are like, who is this girl? That's kind of how it felt at the conference. They were like, who is this girl? She was on our board. It was virtual, so we didn't really know. Now she's volunteering for everything. And so I ended up being the photographer for the event, for the breakfast, and was able to run and get batteries at the last minute. I was basically there for emergency support at the event, and that gave me a chance to be seen. And again, it was just an example of a time I really wanted to be involved that ended up paying off because in 2023, the then president, Halise Levine, encouraged me to run for secretary just because I had been so involved and so enthusiastic. She thought it would be a great position for me. And for context, in SWAPA, every section is different, but in SWAPA, per our bylaws, you have to be vice chair in order to be chair. It's basically a sequential jump. And so I ran for secretary and always planned to run for vice chair because I eventually wanted to be chair. Then cut to 2024, 2025-ish. This year, I felt at this point like I was always waiting in the wings. I felt I was ready to jump. And so when there was an opening to run for chair because our vice chair had another commitment, and there was an opening to run for chair, I did it immediately. And thankfully, I won, and it was very gratifying experience just being able to say, I've been here since 2018. I've seen all of this go. I've seen all the work we're building up and how a lot of the leadership was put in place in like an emergency situation needing to fill a spot. I felt that I was the only one there who I guess had the experience and the institutional knowledge being secretary and being a board member for so long to be able to step into the role without having to be vice chair first. So that brings me to my key points, that getting involved in SWAPA, this has been a huge journey from just a graduate school volunteer to now chair of the section. It was much easier than I thought. I need y'all to know that these organizations, they need help, and they don't care about who it is as much as you think they do. You're qualified, you're confident, you're willing to help and ready to be involved. That's good enough. These organizations are open to new people. And I need you to know that it's actually our duty as members of ASPA and as SWAPA members specifically, our job is to uplift the next generation. And so we are more than open to new people. It doesn't need to be so insular. So that brings you to date with SWAPA. And now I will talk a little bit about my experience going back a bit to the Founders Fellows program. So, as Linda was saying, I was a 2020 Founders Fellow. So that my experience is a little unique given COVID and the pandemic. But for some context, I had attended an ASPA. This is all the way back in 2020, so before the Jacksonville ASPA. The first ASPA I'd ever attended was in Washington, D.C. in about 2018. And I attended that conference through my MPA program support. That also then led to attending SACOPA, which is one of the regional ASPA conferences. And at that point, I was beginning to consider a PhD, and I was more driven by a dream than there was a plan. And so when I applied, I don't know what the application process is now, but when I applied, you had to write an essay for what you thought the biggest issue facing government was. And then you had to have a recommender as well. I went back and I actually found my application, and I need to point out that I wrote about the same thing then that I ended up studying for my dissertation, and that was completely unintentional. And so I think that really goes to show, if you follow your dreams and you follow your interests, the line will connect. It will all make sense in the end. But anyways, alas, 2020, that conference was canceled, but it still opened up a huge network, and it still serves as a place for connection, because this is an area that I would love to give back to. Doors stay open. Anytime you're working with something, the doors are going to stay open.
Michaela, could you turn your audio off and on again? It's cutting out for some people in the audience that can't quite hear.
Sure.
Okay, we'll try that.
How
now? Try again.
How about now?
Okay, we'll try that, and hopefully.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much, Kellen. I appreciate that. But anyways, going back a little bit, the conference was canceled, but it still opened up this huge network. Now two of my coworkers were Founders Fellows, and I just bond with people about it. Linda had pointed out that was something she noticed when she was reading my reading my bio, and so I think it also goes to show that if you follow your interests, it will rarely dwindle. So I had applied with the topic that I ended up writing about for my dissertation unintentionally. That thread connected because I was true to my interests, and I always was interested and passionate about trust in government in any type of form. A key point here is I want to highlight the importance of mentorship. Nobody gets anywhere by themselves, and I think a huge part of my Founders Fellows acceptance was my recommender. I'll be completely honest, my recommender was Kendra Stewart, who at the time was president of ASPA. And so having people that are willing to go to bat for you is huge, but you need to know that you are special and deserving enough to have someone in your corner. You don't need to think, oh, she's she only had Kendra because she's different. Anyone can get to know Kendra type thing. Anyone I know in this public affairs network is open to supporting and uplifting others. And so I know if anyone that I know in my network asked me to write a recommendation, I would do it in a heartbeat, things like that. So another key point here is the importance of mentorship. Also, and Dr. Judy Millison encouraged me to apply, despite this being such a competitive fellowship. I was a bit more confident with this involvement because I had these people backing me, and so I want to highlight that as well. Now we are going to switch to. I'm going to be talking about my time on SPAE, the section on public affairs education. This was a bit more intentional of a decision. I had seen where my research was going. My research agenda was really leaning towards an emphasis on public affairs education. I also was the editorial manager of JPA, the Journal for Public Affairs Education, and my term was ending. So I was stepping off of JPA. I really loved NASPA, and so for those of you who don't know, the section on public affairs education today is very involved with NASPA, the accrediting body, as well as ASPA itself. And so I saw that they had a call for board members, and I ran for the board on a whim. I really was like, I wasn't even a member of SPAE before I did it. I had to call and update my membership to be able to be a dues-paying member of SPAE as well. And so I wasn't a board member yet. I wasn't even a section member. But I ran, and I applied thinking I had no chance. Thinking I had no chance at all. And I was actually shocked to hear that I got elected. I need y'all to know I was so certain I wasn't gonna get it that I didn't even I had a conflict with the virtual board meeting, and I wasn't even there to attend when they called my name because I was that sure. I had another conflict, and I thought, there's no way I'm gonna get this, and I really should have believed in myself because they shared the election results, and I won by a large margin. It wasn't even slim. There were a lot of people out there, and I didn't campaign. And I'm not saying this to brag. I'm saying this because I wish I could tell myself then to believe in myself a little bit more. And so I was shocked when I got elected, but I was a board member. Then, when it came time, I ran for vice chair. Granted, I wasn't running against anyone else, but I was happy to be elected vice chair with Jeffrey Whitebread as my chair. And this has been a totally unique experience. It's totally different than SWAPA, but the two actually inform each other often. So even though the organizations fundamentally are structured differently, have different bylaws, they do different activities, for example, in both groups, we're discussing whether or not we want to continue our X/Twitter profile. And so I'm able to take those conversations and be a little dynamic and contribute to the board in that way. And so not only does that, benefit both sections, it strengthens my network itself. Like it strengthens my network because I'm really strengthening my connections to these other people and to these other organizations, considering NASPA and ASPA are two different complementary programs. And so my key points here are that you can strengthen your connections with very different organizations through ASPA. So SPAE is an ASPA section, but I was able to meet all the people from NASPA. And now, actually, I'm very proud to say we're in charge of programming for a whole day on the day before the conference, which now is a good time to plug. If y'all are coming to NASPA, please come a day early to the Wednesday, the Work It Wednesday. We are co-locating TPAC, the Teaching Public Affairs Consortium, with NASPA. And so Jeffrey and I are in charge of programming for that. And so I can talk about that experience, and I would never have had that if I didn't have ASPA and run for SPAY. And I also want to emphasize here that it is always good to try. You should never be afraid to be seen trying. You know, if I didn't try, I wouldn't know that so many people believed in me to serve on this board. I wouldn't have had this experience. And I tried, even though I thought it would be a fruitless effort. You know, just getting your name out there really is enough. So, to wrap up, looking back, every step, SWAPA, the Founders Fellow, SPAY, this wasn't part of some master plan. The only through line was saying yes to what sparked something in me. In a world that prizes 5-year plans, where everyone's emphasizing the need to be so forward thinking you're unable to be truly present, I advise the opposite. Granted, I want you to be strategic with your time, your energy, and your effort, but don't lose sight of what feels meaningful right now. For example, right now, I feel that same spark pulling me towards mentoring others. So I'm constantly on the lookout for opportunities to pass the baton. That's why this was an automatic yes when I was asked to present this webinar. Doing so doesn't move the needle on my tenure case. It won't make or break my annual review. Yes, it is technically a resume builder, but more so, it helps me build something else. A career grounded in joy, curiosity, and connection. So when I first joined ASPA as a grad student, I had no idea where it would lead, just that it felt right. And that one yes, as scared and as small as it might have seemed, unintentionally opened the door to almost everything else that followed. So maybe that's the question I'll leave you with. What keeps tugging at you, even when it feels scary or uncertain? Whatever your answer, I want you to follow that. That's your thread. You don't need to know the whole map. You just need to take the next step that feels true to you. And with that, thank you very much.
Woohoo!
Woo!
Well, I tell you, you did not disappoint, madam.
Thank
That is
you.
awesome, awesome, awesome. So one of the reoccurring themes that I heard in your webinar today, your presentation today, is believing in yourself. And I love that so much. I would hope to help people to take away that you can start off as being a photographer at an event. You know, the key thing is to network and to put yourself out there. That is what I heard from you today, and that's what I love about that. I want to encourage people who's on this webinar right now to send your questions in the question chat box so we can ask Michaela some of these questions that you guys are just dying to know. But I tell you, when I grow up, I want to be just like Miss Michaela Abbott.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't feel like a grown up myself, but I like to say I'm like 6 years old at heart. But that's part of the fun. That's part of the fun.
Absolutely, absolutely. So one of the questions that I have is, and you answered some of these questions, but I really want you to speak to this a little bit more. How important for individuals, especially new professionals, new students, new MPA students, to get involved in their local chapters, get involved in different sections that speak to their heart about their career and their career path and where they want to go, and just having that network for them. How important is that for those new professionals?
It is super important. And yes, granted, I could not be more extroverted if I tried. And I know that this is harder for introverts. But your network doesn't need to be huge. It doesn't need to be everybody in ASPA. It can be very intentional to your interests and your needs. And I'm telling you, the way our field works is someone you meet in your master's program at one conference, I bet you're going to come across them another time. And even if it's not for a professional opportunity, it's just good to have a friend, it's just good to have
Yes.
somebody there that you can talk to. And a lot of people are open. I know at the conference it might seem so awkward to just go up and introduce yourself, but if there is a time and place, it is the conference and those networking events. And so you don't need to have a business card. You don't need to have your whole thing figured out. You don't need to have your elevator speech ready at all times.
Yes.
You just need to be yourself and want to be involved. Want to be involved. I think that's the biggest lesson I can give. Is more than education and experience, enthusiasm goes a long way.
Oh,
And so
wow.
if
Thank
this is
you.
something you're interested in is where you can be enthusiastic about it. It won't be feigned. It won't be fake.
That is golden. I really appreciate you saying that. This year, the conference we was at Washington D.C. and I went there with no one, not knowing anybody there, but I left with at least about six numbers.
Yep.
Um, and these are some people that I continue to network with, check in on. And so it's really good. So we are looking forward to the next conference to meet one another again in Hollywood. So now I have a network. So
Yes.
you're right. You're right. People need to put themselves out there and don't be afraid to do that.
Yeah.
Um, and so another thing that you talked about is people feeling like they're not qualified.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
one of the things that people feel like, oh, I'm new. I've never done this before. I don't have the experience. But how important or what do you think are some good things people can do to build their self-esteem around their career? Because
Mm.
sometimes we can have self-esteem as an individual, but when you're building a new career, what should you do? What are some of those things that would be good experiences to dive into right now?
Yeah. So, okay. So for experiences, first, the student and new professionals section of ASPA is a great place to start. Also, just cold call emailing. I think honestly, Linda, you are a great example of this. Just one day you showed up on my doorstep and you were in my inbox, like, I want to be involved. And look at you now, you're the membership committee chair. And so putting yourself out there, even just, I mean, I can attribute all of my things to just simple Google searches. I remember sitting, like I was saying, on my parents' bed, my parents' guest room bed, and I just Googled women in public administration. I don't necessarily want to make it a gendered thing, but I do think having a tribe, your tribe of people in your personal life is also huge in giving you support. I'm thinking especially about, the type of media I consume as well. That's a lot for my self-esteem. I don't know if y'all are fans of Alona Mayer, but this rugby star who's coming up, she said, imposter syndrome who? I worked for this. And so that's the mentality I'm trying to take into this world. And it's so hard. And this is where the fake it till you make it kind of cliche makes it's a cliche for a reason. Because I'm telling you, just putting yourself out there, every yes that you get in return goes way farther than any no. I can't even To be honest, I can't even remember the times that I failed off the top of my head. I know there are many. There are many times I ran for things that I didn't get, but those don't stick with me as much as, for example, seeing today's election results. I freaked out to see how many people had voted for me, and
Wow.
you just need to, I think, put yourself out there. It really doesn't matter what the program is or what the um. Oh, I do also want to note your professors and your mentors at work, your professors, your administrators, your staff, all of those people are going to speak on your behalf in one way or another. And so making sure that every connection matters, not just these like big wigs or these professional organizations, these things outside of your network, making sure that you appreciate the people around you as well.
Wow, that is great. And I just also want to say that you are very welcoming. I just have to give you your flowers today. You are very welcoming when I sent that first nervous email about getting involved, because of course the Swap of Women section spoke to me about, the women issues and things that we have that's going on in this country, and just what we deal with as a woman in our professions, in our field. And so that was one of the sessions that I was most interested in. And you were very welcoming, getting me involved, giving me information on how to be involved. So getting a mentor, is that easy? Is that hard? What are some of the challenges?
Ooh,
Talk a little
good
bit about
question.
mentorship.
Good question. I need you to know, I bet you $1 million, every single one of you already has a mentor in your life. You just may not call them that. So your mentors are, I just give that title to people. I don't formally ask anybody. It's anyone who gives me advice. And if there's that saying, when people say I'm not like other girls, actually I'm an amalgamation of all the cool girls I've ever met. That's how I feel. I feel, and it doesn't have to be uh women either. I still reach out to my high school teacher who made an impact on me. All of those people are my mentors. I would say me being here right now, I'll be a mentor for you, anything. So, and it doesn't matter their age, their status, their whatever their job is, where they're at in their job, whether they're a late stage or new early professional. Sometimes I think about the people in my own master's program as mentors to me because, my students sometimes I feel like are mentoring me a little bit. It's not necessarily a person or a title as it is an act and a verb, and it's a helping another. And so finding a mentor for me is just asking a question, getting an answer. Now that person's your mentor. And you can keep asking them questions. I know, I mean, it might seem scary to ask your boss some questions or to ask the CEO to coffee. If that's scary to you, work your way up, you know? Um, Maybe also if there's like getting involved in the chapters we were talking about, your local chapter, if there's somebody there, automatically they're a mentor to you
Hmm.
as chair of the organization. Anyone you meet in your network can be a mentor to you or can mentor you. And vice versa, you probably are mentoring others and you might not know. I remember when I was a master's student, it was International Women's Day, and I got a note from somebody on my ultimate frisbee team that they felt like I had mentored them. And it's a way more natural process than people think. And I challenge y'all to not make it such a formal thing. I have my mentors. It's a way to refer to someone, give them the respect for what they've done to help you. Um, but it can be anybody. It can be anybody. It
That
can be
is
you
so.
or somebody else.
Well, that is great. Thank you. I definitely want to say that this picture speaks to your spirit. It is truly who you are. I love it.
You want to know? I got professional headshots taken at the university for free, and the guy sent me the real headshot and then was like, I need you to know that I also got this picture. This was just this was just me talking to the dude. And so I love this picture of myself because I'm like, if I could do one that shows my energy, it's this.
Oh yeah, I have to channel that energy and get me one of those pictures for my future presentations.
Oh, you
And
got it.
I love that. I love that. So you guys, I don't see any questions right now, but you see Michaela contact. She is open
Please.
for any questions, suggestions, email that you guys may have for her. She did an excellent job. I know you guys were excited to hear what she had to say, and we appreciate you showing up for us today. Kaylin?
Thank you. Thank you all so much. Please email me. Please contact me, whatever you need. Anything.
I'd like to thank Michaela and Linda both for being here. We really appreciate it. A recording of today's session will be available only to ASPA members. It does take a couple weeks to show up in your online digital content portal. Good Lord. And Michaela's information is already in the chat. So we appreciate everybody being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.